The cutting floor divulged a ROM that was supposedly a 1997 Space World demo, meaning that when Pokemon Gold and Silver actually launched, we had a completely, totally different game than what we actually were able to see in the demo itself. So when the game finally did launch, what we had was nothing like the demo showed. And so in this video, I'm going to be going over not only the Pokemon sprites, but also the reworked map, as well as the trainer sprites, and other things that have been cut. So of course we have the original 151 sprites, we both have the front and the back sprites, and I want to tell you, every single sprite here seems to be either the original red and blue ones that launched, or reworked versions of the red and blue ones, even their back sprites being reworked. So some of them are reused, some of them are different, some of them look really, really cool and look completely reworked in a way where they look great, and other ones don't look that great. But as you can see through the original 151, they do indeed look different. Haunter looks like he wants you to come at him real hard for whatever reason. Now, if we move on to the gold and silver sprites, it looks like Quillfish actually has an evolution. That just never happened. There seems to also be baby Pokemon who have been added at this point in time. So if the original Pokemon were scrapped in red and blue because they didn't have the memory to be able to put that many Pokemon in, you can see that by this time, this would be 1997, they did have workings for baby Pokemon. Even though they look quite different, they are there. Pokemon like Hoothoot's evolution looks vastly different than what we actually got, which is pretty crazy. And one of the biggest changes is the Pokemon that is in between Chikorita and Meganium, Bayleaf. That Pokemon looks completely different to what it's supposed to look like. Now, Pokemon have done this before, where their intermediate stage is completely different than their final evolution, but this intermediate stage looks completely different from Chikorita and Meganium itself. And by the way, Typhlosion, Cyndaquil's evolutionary line, as well as Totodile's evolutionary line, are completely gone and replaced with separate Pokemon. You can see that the seal that they use kind of looks like a starter that was used way later on in Pokemon Sun and Moon, but it's a little bit different than what we have. Of course, later on in generations, they're going to add things and change things, but a lot of these Pokemon are very, very unique and very, very different than what we actually got in Generation 2. Dendini. I can't say your name very well, but it definitely looks like that Pokemon's here in sprite form. There's no questioning that, which is pretty crazy also. Next to Steelix, we have what I am assuming to be Licky Licky. That would be Lickitung's evolution. The beasts that you're supposed to find in the wild look all like horses, kind of. They do not look like a saber-toothed tiger or a giant dog of sorts. They look like horses. Very strange horses. And then it also looks like you have a variation of Mew and Ho-Oh. So, no Lugia. Very, very odd to see the placement of some of these sprites also, as Snowball's one of the last Pokemon added in, along with Togepi. There's also a Pinsir, for whatever reason, being shown as kind of a Generation 2 edition sprite. So maybe Pinsir was supposed to have an evolution and supposed to look kind of Heracross-y, and instead of having Heracross as an individual Pokemon, this was supposed to be what Pinsir was supposed to evolve into. Very, very odd and very, very strange, but very interesting nonetheless. We're going to move over to trainer sprites, and you can see that there are the workings of very unique trainers here. I'd like to point out that once again, Pokemon was supposed to be a vastly different game, a much darker game, and you can see that in some of these sprites having whips. They have literal whips, not just for training Pokemon, but even Team Rocket members have whips, which shows and implies once again that Team Rocket were abusing Pokemon and that there are trainers out there who train Pokemon like the crack of a whip, how there used to be tiger or lion trainers where they would crack a whip to train a lion. There's some sprites that have not been used, and there are some sprites that we very much recognize, like a bug catcher, the twins, or we have the Camino girls. There is the reuse of Pokemon Trainer Blue here as well in sprite form, meaning that they had the idea to use Blue and connect at least Generation 1 in some way, shape, or form to this generation also. But there is the absence of Red. There's Professor Oak as a sprite, which is what you see on the title screen, so it doesn't necessarily indicate that you were going to have a battle with him. But once again, I really need to emphasize that you can't see Trainer Red here for whatever reason, so maybe Red was an afterthought and Blue was going to be the final boss of the game. Onto the map itself, you can see that when you look at the town map, the map looks completely different and you start out in a very, very different town. You can see that this map is incredibly different than what it originally was, where you started off in New Barktown and you went left, up, down, left, again, and you just had a certain way of going through things. Here, you get to start off in a very unique giant town, and you have the option to go right or left first, and then it turns kind of into a very strange puzzle after you get through your first 2 major towns. It's a very unique and interesting take on what Generation 2 could have been. So make sure to like and share this video with everyone, so there's just a lot of people out there who know about what Pokemon Generation 2 could have been, and ultimately what we got, I gotta tell you, isn't as exciting as what I'm seeing here. I wonder why so many of these sprites were cut off when many of them look so cool. Why were the starters completely changed aside from Chikorita and Meganium? It's all so strange and confusing, but maybe we'll get some light shed on these results. Maybe Pokemon will come forward and tell us some things. I don't know. Let me know your most excited part of this. What are you excited about?